Welcome to Satsang. So, in an understanding or a realization that we are all one, that there isn't a two, that duality really doesn't exist, that everything is us. In this understanding, or this knowing through direct experience of this, the willingness to fight ourselves ceases. The willingness to resist, to live as resistance, ceases. After all, if we are everything, which we are, what's the point in resisting any part of ourselves? What's the point in being in warfare? What's the point in creating that amount of suffering against ourselves? For what? Shaking our fist at ourselves and thinking somehow we're right and the other part of ourselves is wrong, and creating turmoil and suffering inside ourselves and possibly the same in the other part of us? For what? And so there comes a point where you refuse to close, where you refuse to go into resistance, where you stay open no matter what's happening. And this is when most of the suffering just disappears, because most of your suffering is caused by your resistance to what is. Probably based on belief systems which create expectations of how things should be. Rather than just being okay with what is. Being in acceptance of what is. Living a life that is not in warfare against what is. Not in opposition with what is. But in peace with what is. And so when the mind comes to this understanding, to this knowing, it stops fighting, it stops resisting. The game is up. And awareness itself can rest on itself quite easily, because the mind isn't constantly contracting anymore. It's not going into resistance to what is anymore. It can remain pretty still. That doesn't mean that you can't change things. You can if you want. But from a place of openness, a place of tender okayness, rather than a place of resistance. Instead of there being a fight, there's just a gentle movement from openness. It's up to you. If you can see my point, if you've known yourself as one, if you have the understanding of non-dualism, you can see that it's a waste of time fighting with your own reflection. A waste of time resisting existence. Creating suffering for no reason. All the suffering being at your own hand because of your resistance. Instead, openness, acceptance, and in that openness and acceptance, the beauty of love. What a wonderful way to live. Of course, we've all been programmed genetically and causally, to survive, to resist, to fight. And at a very deepest level of our brain, that's where it's at, survival. And so, to become open, one needs to learn to let go. One needs to relax the mind by practicing acceptance, by practicing surrender, until the mind becomes very good at it, until the mind is mastered. Not by someone else, but by itself. So it can stay still. So it doesn't go off constantly reacting and resisting life. And it's up to you. You're the one who's looking at you. You're the one who's examining you. You're the one who's either practicing acceptance or practicing resistance. No one can do it for you but you. If you're sick of suffering, start practicing acceptance of what is. Stop fighting. Give up. You're only fighting yourself anyway. We are one. One. Thank you for Satsang.